what I do, you've got to have supernatural patience because I deal with stupid people in my natural, whatever you want to call it, in the flesh. I don't have the patience to deal with some of the personalities. The only thing worse than a straight up insult is an insult designed like a question. So you slide it in. The question and answer portion is that time that's reserved for people who are legitimately seeking knowledge and requesting information from someone who's done work in a field, hoping that that person will provide a response that gives you some kind of education, or at least points you in the direction where you can, of some resources where you can go to try to dig deeper, right? But when someone comes in and their prejudices are loaded up like a gun, and they don't care what your answer is, they're not going to change from that presupposed state. If 1 + 1 is 2, but they've got it made up in their mind that 1 + 1 is 5, your answer to 1 + 1 doesn't matter because they're not movable. But they're planted in the same group of question askers as the legitimate seeker of information. And so it's tough to make the distinction, to discriminate, to decide who is what. You know what I mean? You have to assume that everybody's asking a question in good faith as a starting point until that individual shows you that they've got some other crooked motive. And then once you find out they have a crooked motive, particularly if that motive is to insult you or degrade you or to lie about you or to convince other people that you're something that you're not, you have a duty to come at them with the same force and the same frankness and the same deliberateness as they came at you with the lie. So as passionately as they came at you with the lie, you have to match their energy and respond that passionately with the truth, so as to stop their mouth, and to set the record straight, to balance out the scales. There'll be some people that are fooled no matter what. There'll be some people that can see, and all you can do is tell the truth. I get asked this question at least a couple of times a month, and I have pretty much since 1999. So picture twice a month for a couple of months ago. We're less than 60 days into the year 2016. I have been asked in different varieties, many ways, many circumstances, but essentially the question that's just trickled in, I've seen it before, I've dealt with it before, I'll deal with it again. Someone will ask me the question later in a few years, if Jesus Christ delays his second advent and we see 2017, 18, 19, whatever, this question will still come up all the time, even though I've dealt with it a million times. So this will be the million and first. One thing you'll find is that my answer might have different ways of phrasing it depending on the occasion, but the answer in and of itself is always going to be the same. Question that's trickled in is basically the same one I get asked. Do you hate Muslims? Are you anti-Islam? And are you anti-Muslim? Is exactly how they've worded it. So, couple of things. Number one, I've never said that I'm anti-Muslim. And I want to thank you for putting it in the form of a question, because some people go straight to, instead of asking you whether you are, assuming you are, and then saying, why are you so anti-Muslim? Why do you hate people or whatever? Because the question, why do you hate people, assumes as a given, you hate people. So, and if you don't, then the question can't even exist. It's like, why'd you rob the bank? Before I tell you why I robbed the bank, let's back up and ask whether or not I robbed the thing. Because if I didn't rob it, then the question of why I robbed it can't exist. You know what I mean? A question that's dependent on presuppositions is flawed. So this one is respectful. It simply asks whether or not I hate Muslims. Okay? So I appreciate that question coming in. Like I said, it comes up all the time. Put it to you like this. Making a distinction between Muslims and Islam. Islam is a worldview. Muslims are people. Okay? So you have to liken it to this. If I was an abolitionist and I was communicating to slaves to say, hey, come to the Underground Railroad, if somebody said, why do you hate the slaves? Or do you hate the slaves? No. If I hated them, the best thing I would do is leave them in the institution that has them chained. But since I love them, my love for them motivates my desire and my willingness to put myself in harm's way to give them freeing and life-saving information. All right? So that's kind of, I liken myself to an abolitionist if Islam is spiritual slavery. So I have a problem with the system, the worldview, Islam, and there are some older tapes in my younger, more brash days. You mean you were once more brash? Yep. Where I used to flagrantly come out in Sunday school, to people who were just trying to put macaroni and cheese on the table for their babies, and I'm calling Angel Jibril a demon, and I'm calling Allah Satan. You know what I mean? I was much less tactful back then, but everything I said was true. So my love for the Muslim is what causes me to put my reputation and my safety and someone's opinion on the line. I disregard everything. I deny myself, and I furnish them with the information that if you follow Allah, Muhammad, the Qur'an, the Hadith, and Islam, you will die in a condition of judicial guilt in the sight of a holy and just God. What was God doing to Jesus Christ on the cross? He was treating him like he was you, if you're one of the elect. You know what I mean? He was suffering pain that you deserve. People always talk about, fix your crown. You see your sister, fix her crown and make sure no one's watching. Straighten up her crown. Always talking about a crown. We're always calling our kids kings, if they're a boy. We're calling our daughters queens. And I know it's cultural and stuff, but the idea is that I'm so high and mighty that I deserve a crown. The only crown we ever deserved to wear was made out of thorns. And God the Son wore it on our behalf. When you adopt, there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his Rasul, you have to reject that message because the Quran calls you to reject that message. You have to reject when Jesus Christ said from the cross, Tetelestai, it has been paid in full. If we translate it sometimes, it is finished. You have to say, no, Jesus was lying. It was not paid in full. It was not finished. Or you have to deny that he ever said it, which is why some of the Muslims begin borrowing bad arguments from Western atheists. And don't you know this really wasn't here? Yes, it was, dummy. Let's deal with textual criticism. Oh, I can't do it. Then shut up. But the question, do you hate Muslims? If I hated Muslims, I wouldn't tell them anything. I would keep the information to myself and let them go straight to hell, believing a message that fails to satisfy the one that made them. All right? The fact that I love them means I open my mouth and I say something. If someone's playing in the middle of the street and all of a sudden there's a big truck, it's about to run them over. If you hate them, what do? You keep your mouth shut and let them get flattened by the car, right? If you love them, what do? You yell, hey, get out of the way, you're getting set to die. If you really love them, maybe you walk over, grab them by the shirt and pull them out of the way so they don't get hit and die. It is an act of love to tell somebody a message that calls them to re-examine their current worldview and adopt something that helps them avoid impending spiritual disaster. For you to call me a hater of Muslims, what you really have to do is walk up to a doctor who treats cancer, and anytime he communicates to a patient, you need to treat this cancer, you're going to die, you have to accuse that doctor of hating that patient. He doesn't hate the patient. If he hated the patient, he'd let him die. He loves the patient. He cares about the patient. So he's telling them, here's what you're dealing with and here's how to fix it. Here's how to treat it. Right? You can't see the difference between love and hate. So you hate these people. I love these people. I don't like the worldview because the worldview is spiritually destructive. But, you know, my love for the people motivates my displeasure at the worldview. And my displeasure at the worldview and what it's going to do to these people gives me the supernatural empowerment and courage through the Holy Spirit to want to take a couple of risks and tell some people some facts that might be inconvenient to them, and their emotional reaction might be inconvenient to me. And then some people say, well, aren't you a racist? Well, that depends. If you believe 1 + 1 is 11, and I say 1 + 1 is 2, and I corrected your view of mathematics, would you call me racist? No. Why? Because the factual accuracy of a mathematical equation is not a race-based issue. This is not the 1960s. We're not in a street at a rally on a university campus. All right? Not everything is a race-based struggle, especially when you're dealing with, is the sky blue or is the sky red? I don't know. But if I correct you according to the facts and you decide to call me race, all I can tell you is that Islam is a worldview. And the people that subscribe to this worldview are black, white, red, yellow, brown. It is a cross-section on every continent. When I attack the worldview, and you're calling me racist, what does that mean except you're assigning a stereotypical race to the religion, which means you become racist because you're you know what I mean? You're taking a prejudice and saying Islam equals a certain skin tone. And if you're talking about Islam, you're talking about a skin tone. You have to assign those things to call me a racist, which means you can't call me a racist without becoming one. All right? And the difference is you have to lie about my character to do it, and you have to become what you're accusing me of. So really, that argument should be embarrassing for somebody to have. You hate people. I love people. I would love nothing more than to see somebody drop the message of the crescent and pick up the message of the cross. Some of the best and most bold and vocal Christians that I've ever known are former Muslims, because they know what they got delivered from, and they go back to their families, and they're going to be thrown out of the family, they're going to be killed, all kinds of stuff, but they don't care because they heard the voice of the Messiah. They were on their way to hell, and then God the Son, the message punctured the conscience, and they dropped to their knees and lowered the weapons of rebellion. All right? Former Muslims and my buddies that are former Muslims are composed of all manner, whether it's former Eastern European white dudes, whether it's black guys from West Africa, all right? Middle Eastern guys from Pakistan, and Iran and Iraq and Syria. I know a ton of them. Somalia. You know what I mean? I got a lot of Somalian brothers that came here to a country that has, at least right now anyway, it's still legal to exchange religious information. They got access to the Christian message for the first time in an unmolested manner, and they became Christians. And part of becoming a Christian is the rejection of the Islam, which directly contradicts it on every major point. All right, so are you going to call these guys racist when they go back to tell their families? No, you're not going to do it. You're just screwing with me by attacking my character. So I spend time defending my character, and then the conversation moves from the topic at hand, theological, historical, philosophical, over to, please don't call me a name, please. What do I have to do to convince you that I'm not this name? I don't have time for that. I used to care what my reputation was. I don't care anymore because I know who I am and God knows who I am. And a man that doesn't care if you have a negative opinion of him, as long as he's telling the truth for Jesus, a man that can't be bought and can't be intimidated and can't be bullied to people who are in the power structure, that's a dangerous dude. And that's why, sometimes I got to look over my shoulder. And sometimes stuff happens in my life that's unexplainable. And that's even scary. All right, because I got to tell you, my death threats used to come from other countries. Then they started coming from Detroit and Chicago. Now they're local. So Islam is spreading like cancer. I'm glad I likened it to cancer. like a weed, whatever. And it's in the backyard. The good news is the mission field has come here. The bad news is the dangers that come with the cultural trappings of Islamic culture. Specifically, I hold to a religion of peace. Don't make me slit your throat. You know, that's now in the backyard too. So, do I love Muslims? Absolutely. Do I have a problem with Islam? Yes. The same way that the abolitionist loves the slave and has a problem with the institution of slavery. That's how you have to see me as I reach out to Muslims and try to appeal to them to put their trust in the death, the burial, and the resurrection of God the Son, incarnated in the historical person of Jesus of Nazareth, who will return to judge the living and the dead, and will destroy Islam and send it to hell. As with all the people who rejected Jesus and followed Muhammad, will also go to hell. I don't want them to go to hell because I love them. That's why I tell them the truth. And if you can't make sense out of this, then you were either dropped on your brain, on your head, you were denied oxygen, you did something terrible, that or you just, the MSNBC and CNN and the government-run schools and, secular media and social media have all gotten to you, and you're not capable of rational, intelligent, logical, evidentiary, factual, and historical discourse, in which case I'm like Mike Tyson, the world heavyweight champion, and you're like Joe Schmo, Joe Dirt, the fighter in the club. You don't belong in the same ring as me. But no, I don't hate Muslims. And if I did, the best way for me to do it would be to not deny them the information and the results of my research and hoard it and hog it and keep it private.